Hi class, I'm going to do lab 17.1.2. So I reset my virtual machine because I walked through it once already. And now I'm going to click here to start. If it doesn't populate your name, here's the username, here's the password. Click the little arrow button to paste it in. So in this lab, they are talking about infrastructure as a service. So normally companies would buy a server, set it up, and use that server. Well, in this particular case, what we're going to be doing is setting up a virtual machine as opposed to a physical one, but it's going to be hosted on the Azure network, the Azure cloud environment. So a server is part of the infrastructure, your network infrastructure. So they're selling this as infrastructure as a service. This is just a fancy name for a virtual machine on someone else's network. So the first thing we're going to do is, I have virtual machines here, but you might not have that. So I'm going to go up here and type virtual machines. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to create a new virtual machine. And it's going to be an Azure virtual machine. The instructions don't talk about that step. So under the resource group, we're going to choose the existing resource group, which actually matches the name now. The VM name is VM1. It's case sensitive, so make sure you use VM1 or paste it in there. It needs to be on the East region. For what we need to do, we need this to be standard. The image that they're referring to no longer exists. So we're going to use a Gen 1. It doesn't match the name that they specify, but that's fine. They're saying Gen 1, they don't put the x64, so we're going to stick with that one. Now the CPU we're going to use, we're just going to leave the default one. The one that they specify is no longer there. This will still work. So the user account name, we're going to use ucertify, and we're going to type the password in twice. Now we're going to leave on the remote desktop port so we can connect to that virtual machine from the internet. So what that means is it's also going to create a public IP address for us. It's not really self-apparent, but if you open up a port, you need a public IP. So we're going to either click Next or go to the Disk tab. I'm just going to click Next. So we're going to leave the default disk as it is. We're going to leave it alone. We're going to add a data disk. So this virtual machine will have two disks, one for the operating system and one for data. And they're saying whatever this is, we're just going to leave the defaults. So we're going to have two disks, one data disk, one disk for the operating system. So for the networking, they want us to use this network name, VN1. No, I'm sorry, you won't have that. I'm going to create new. I'm going to call it VN1. It's case sensitive. So I'm going to delete this address space and put in my own. That's a classical address. Then in that classical address, I'm going to create a subnet. The subnet name will be ABC, and the range of IPs for that subnet will be the entire classical address. Again, you could have just pasted it in. You're going to click OK. I already did this lab once, so my network is still there. So you click OK. I'm going to click discard. I'm going to use the one I already created, which is VN1. There's my subnet. Everything is the same the first time I did this. We're not going to make any other changes. Now, if you read ahead, they say go to the management tab, do nothing. Go to the monitoring tab, do nothing. Go to the advanced tab, do nothing. Go to the tags tab, do nothing. Then go to review and create. It's going to cost about 7 cents an hour to run this virtual machine. Here's all the settings and pass validation. Now I can create it. So once you create the virtual machine, it's going to take quite a few minutes to deploy it. Submitting it for deployment. Now it's deploying it. So it's going to take a while. It's going to take a little longer for you because I already had my network. You could go up here to the notifications tab and see that there as well. So again, we're just going to sit here and wait. Be patient. Just let it do its thing. This has nothing to do with the speed of the computer I'm connecting to. It has everything to do with the Azure environment. Everything is being done on Microsoft servers. The interesting thing is that we're actually using an Ubuntu virtual image to connect to the Azure environment. Okay, it's done. You can click on the notifications. There it is. If we go back to home, look at virtual machines. It's also there because I recently created it. Here's my virtual machine. All the details about that virtual machine. Here's the nice thing. I go to connect. There's my public IP. I can open up remote desktop on my computer if you're on a Windows machine. Type in our public IP address. Click connect. Type in our user account name, which is uCertified. It is case sensitive. Type in our password. The cut and paste feature won't work. Click OK. Ask me to accept the certificate. Now it's going to connect to that virtual machine. Because this is the first time I'm running it, it's going to take a minute to build the virtual machine. And you can verify there's things still happening. You know, I can't connect to it just yet, but well, it's working now. It's booting up for the first time. So instead of spending 40 grand for a new server, then buying the licenses and the OS and everything like that, you can just get a server out on the web for 7 cents an hour. It'll cost you about $47 a month. So just, guys, trust me in this, it will come up eventually. And it's building a profile. Okay, I'm not going to sit here and wait for this, but it will come up eventually. So I'm going to close that out. Okay, now because I don't really need this virtual machine in the future, I'm going to go back to virtual machines. And if I remember here, I'm going to delete it. It's letting me know that this is irreversible. Any data that I lose is mine. So I'm going to free up that public. I don't really need to do this for the lab, but I'm going to anyways. When I created that virtual machine, and also every time I add it to a new network, it charges me for an additional network interface. So I'm going to delete everything for this virtual machine. And again, if you close this out, you can always get to it from notifications. I'm just doing this so it's not costing uCertified money. while that's going on, I'm also going to go to the home page. I'm going to choose virtual networks, and I might as well delete this as well. Okay. Let me try to submit this before it actually deletes it. So it because it was still in the deletion process, it was still able to grade it. So grade it before you delete it, if you delete it at all. Okay, that's it for this lab. It's a lot longer than the recommended 5 to 7, minutes. It took me longer to deploy it than what they recommended, but it does work. The problem is UCertify, when they create these instructions, they were correct, but this is a cloud environment. Microsoft changes this every single day. The way it looks today could be completely different tomorrow. That's the nature of this industry. So it's just something we have to deal with, whether you're in Azure, whether you're in AWS. These cloud environments are constantly changing. Thank you.